It is so exciting to be at the South Australian Film Corporation's Adelaide studios to explore this creative, innovative and exciting area for us young people. Let's check it out. Kate Croser, you're an award-winning Australian film and television producer and screen executive, and you are the CEO of the South Australian Film Corporation. In February 2020, you were named one of South Australia's top 50 most influential people by The Advertiser. It is so exciting to be here at these incredible historic facilities in Adelaide Studios to speak with you about your inspirational journey into the film industry and how you are now leading the South Australian film industry into a very exciting future.
Thank you, Isabella. I'm so happy to be here talking to you.
Kate, this is such a golden opportunity sitting here with you to introduce possibilities to young people considering entering into this creative and innovative field as a career possibility. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us young people.
I'm very happy to do that, and I'm really excited that there's young people out there who are interested in getting into the film and TV and games and screen industry in South Australia.
Speaking of games, I'd just like to say I watched one of the videos on YouTube. I heard someone say it's a lot easier to make a game of how the submarine works instead of actually having to build a really expensive submarine, and how the games are actually helping design things so you still have your budget left.
Absolutely. So they're using game engine technology to create virtual reality type environments. So you can use that, as you said, in defence, like with submarines or really expensive things to build. Sports people use it as well to practice how they're going to be in the field in different sports situations, and they'll use virtual reality to do that with game engine technology. So it is used, the type of technology that's used in the screen sector is actually being used all over the whole community in lots of different fields.
That's really amazing. Can you describe your earliest recollection of wanting to be in the film industry and an outline of the journey so far?
When I grew up and was studying, I never even realised that you could have a job in the film industry. So when I got out of school, I studied law and commerce at uni, and I was heading down a path. I worked in the tax office, so I was heading into a path of business and government and taxation and law, and then my partner at the time had studied film, and he actually got a job at the South Australian Film Corporation. So this was about 20 years ago, and I used to just start coming along to the functions that were held. So they were called Thank God It's Friday functions every Friday night, and I used to just come along, and through that I started meeting people. So I think the screen industry is very much a relationship type of business, and I started forming those relationships at those events and functions. And then someone said to me, you know, we really need your kinds of skills in the screen industry, and I had very transferable skills. So I decided to quit my job and just started at the bottom of the ladder working as a production crew. So I worked in the production office and worked my way up through the production office, and then people started saying to me, will you produce my films? And so I kept getting approached to be a producer, and I kept saying, no, I don't want to be a producer, I just want to work in the production office, because I think I needed to really believe that I could be a creative person. And as soon as I came across the first script that I read, that I thought, I really believe in this story, I knew that I was a creative person. So then I decided to take on the challenge of producing that film, and ever since then I haven't looked back, and I've just produced, you know, many films and television series now, run my own production companies. I've had the help of lots of different mentors along the way. I think mentors are really important in the screen industry in particular, because you've really got to learn on the job. You've really got to learn as you go. And then this job here came up at the South Australian Film Corporation, which for me was just at the right time, and I really felt like I could have something to contribute to the industry here in South Australia. So I decided to put my hat in the ring, and the rest is history.
What was the first film you produced?
The very first film I produced was called Angela's Decision, and it was a short film about a girl who wanted to join the army. So that was the very first film that I ever made. It was here in South Australia with a very talented director called Matt King, who has since gone on to work all over the world, directing shows like Doctor Who, and he's directed some amazing work.
Can you use those skills you had, and like what sort of different positions do you think they need more of?
That's a great question. So in my case, I had skills in accounting and finance and contracts and other sort of legal areas, and they're skills that producers use every single day. So those skills I was able to bring from another field and immediately put to work in my own companies, in my own production companies, and on my projects that I produced. But other examples, I had someone recently who I met who used to run an events company, and he is now working in the screen industry as a location manager. And so the type of skills that he had in events management would have been things like logistics, administration, venues, bringing lots of people together in a short space of time, so scheduling. And those are all skills that he's now putting to use as a location manager in finding locations and delivering those locations to productions. So I think other types of transferable skills could include people in the defence industry, say, as we talked about before, who've been working in those virtual environments. And there's a great example of a games company in Adelaide called Foxy Games, and the owner of that used to work in the defence industry, but he always wanted to make games, and now he's set up his own games company and has brought a whole lot of people out of defence to work with him in that company, and they're doing really, really well.
That's really nice to hear. Like, what do you like the best to produce?
Well, I think that I originally got into the industry because I was really inspired by films. So I used to go to Cinematheque every Thursday night at the Mercury and watch all the old films, and I got really inspired by the old classics, and I really wanted to contribute to that art house type of filmmaking. And I think for me, rather than having a particular favourite, what I think is important for people to know is that the format is dictated or decided by the story that you have. So if you have a very simple idea that might be perfectly told in a short film in 10 minutes. If you have a story which is about a single person who's going on a journey, even if it's a psychological journey, then that is a perfectly well told by a feature film. And if you have a story which is, lots of different people, lots of different characters, like it might be set in a hospital or a police station, and so you've got lots of different characters in that world whose stories you want to explore, then that's the kind of thing that's really well told through a television series or an episodic series. So for me, I think it's about finding what's the story you want to tell, and then the format or the platform will come out of that.
Can you tell us what an episodic series is?
Yeah, so we always used to say television series, but now we have so many series that we watch might be on streaming platforms or online or on our mobile phones. And so rather than call things television, we now call them episodic, so they're episodes.
Oh, now I get it. For all the young people watching, some of who are yet to enter the workforce, some of who are studying working part-time, and some of who are unfulfilled in their jobs, what are the pathways for them to become involved if they have transferable skills?
Well, I think my example is probably a really good one in that sense, because it's exactly what I did. I was unfulfilled in my job and my journey, so I saw the screen industry and thought, wow, this is a whole exciting new world that I never knew that I could be a part of. I think there's lots of ways that people can get involved. As I said, relationships is everything in this business. So the more that you can be connecting with people who are already in the business, the more that you can build those relationships and have those contacts, which is how you really get, jobs and opportunities in the industry. There's a really terrific organisation in Adelaide called the Mercury CX, and they provide ways for people who are entry level and just starting out in the industry to connect with other people, to get opportunities to work on screen content, to get opportunities to attend training seminars. They do networking events. They have a really fantastic conference that runs every year called the Screen Makers Conference, which is actually attracts people from all over Australia to attend, and that happens here in Adelaide. So that's a really good way to get involved. And I think just, subscribing to the SA Film Corporation's newsletter. You can also subscribe to Screen Australia's newsletter. It just helps you to understand what's going on in the industry, what are the opportunities that are out there. There's lots of training organisations as well that you can go to, depending on what areas you're interested in. So you might go to a training organisation like MAPS if you want to get experience in being a crew person. MAPS is amazing because they just make a whole lot of films. Through the year they might make 50 films, the students there. So you get lots and lots of on-the-job practice, which is really important. Then you've got universities like UniSA, who run a visual effects course and also do a postgraduate certificate for producers. You have Flinders Uni, who've teamed up with CDW Studios to do an animation course. There's the Academy for Interactive Entertainment that teach visual effects and game development. So there's lots of different ways to get training, but I think, the important thing, as I mentioned, is relationships. So one technique that I've found has been successful is when you see something that you really love, like a film or a TV show or a game, you can reach out to the people who made that and just let them know what you loved about it and see if they've got any opportunities for work experience or for any jobs that are going. And people really like it when you connect with the content that they've produced, so that's a really good way in.
If you had to give someone who, I'll give you a bit of a basis, I don't know what I want to do, I have no experience in the film industry, I don't have any transferable skills, what is the one piece of advice you could give them?
I would say to volunteer on, if they want to get into, say, film, for example, or TV, to volunteer on set. So to offer to do a job on a production so that they can see how a set actually works, and it's a very structured, hierarchical type of operation, a film production. So you've got your director and producer at the top, you've got the writer who's written the work, and then underneath that sit a whole lot of heads of department, and underneath them sit a whole lot of people who work in each department. So it's very specialised, so it makes sense to try and get a sense of what all the different departments do before you pick which particular area you want to go down. If you have a chance to be on a set and see a production in progress, then you get to see all the departments of work and you can make up your mind, is this for me or not? And I think probably the best way to get that experience is to go through the Mercury CX. As I said, they're running production opportunities all the time at a lower budget level, short films and that kind of thing, and they're always looking for people to help out. So that's a good way to get into contact with other people who are making films as well.
What are the career gaps that stand out to the South Australian Film Corporation?
The ones we're focusing on at the moment are production accounting, production management, assistant directing, assistant to the cinematographer, so camera assistant, and also production design. So lots of different areas there, and as you can imagine, lots of them do have transferable skills that you could bring in from other work experience or life experience that you have. So production accounting, we're very, very short on trained people who can do that work in Adelaide. But yet there's all of these accountants out there who are working as accountants in other industries. And so what we're doing with our Skilling SA initiative is we're working out what's just the little pieces of information they need to be able to take the accounting work they might do for another business and then do it in the film industry. So we're just giving them that little bit extra information. It's called micro-credentials. And so they will come out of this program with a accreditation that says that they are accredited as a production accountant. So that will help them get jobs in the industry as well. I think that one of the exciting things about working in the film industry as opposed to other industries is that you're always making something. So everyone on the production accountant included, is actually working with the rest of a team to make a product that you then see on screen at the end of it. Yeah. So that was, for me, one of the reasons why I wanted to put my skills, instead of putting them to work in the taxation industry, I thought I could put those same skills to work in the screen industry, and I'm producing amazing TV shows and films that I get to watch and my family gets to watch and be proud of. So that's something, I think that's a reason why accountants, for example, or anyone else with transferable skills might be interested to bring those skills from other industries and work in the screen industry instead.
For young people wanting to get involved in the industry, how can they seek out opportunities that come up, such as, say, if you're an actor, how can I get roles as a starting off actor? How can I get roles for directing, producing, writing?
Like I mentioned, the Mercury CX is a really great starting point. So that's a way for people to come together who are just starting out, and they can find collaborators there, so people who they're going to work with in a creative team. They can also just jump onto other people's productions who might need help, and that's a way to just start getting some experience in the industry. I think the other way to start is just to start making your own little projects, whether that's a video game or a little short film or a little series, like what you're doing with Inspired By. Everyone now has got the ability to start with their own mobile phone, a YouTube subscription, and you can have your content made and out there. And I think the benefit of the way that, all of these new platforms are providing content for audiences, the benefit of that is that it's easier for people to get their content out and to an audience, and they can actually build an audience, and they can show the marketplace that there's actually a demand for my kind of content. And that's really, really powerful, I think.
Yeah. Is there a substantial demand for technologically gifted young people within the areas that you cover under the South Australian Film Corporation?
I think there is, and it's growing all the time as technological disruptions kind of impact on our industry. And the technological disruptions bring a lot of opportunity as well. So there might be opportunity to lower costs or make things faster or make things easier to get done. So some of the jobs which are particularly technological in their nature might include managing the on-set data requirements, because we're using cameras that are, when they're filming, they're churning through a lot of data because they're so high resolution. So someone has to be on set to manage all of that data and make sure that it's kept safe and doesn't get lost or damaged or corrupted. There's also in game development and visual effects, the vast majority of those jobs are highly technological in nature. Animation as well. Also in post-production, so things like editing or finishing the sound on a production, they're very technological jobs. And there's actually a new technology emerging, which is really exciting for film and episodic production, and it's called virtual production. And so basically you set up these walls of screens around the actors. It could be even in a full circle around the actor, and you project onto the screens the environment that they're in. So it might be a desert, or it might be outer space, or it might be a space station, and then the actors are acting on set, but they've got the environment around them. So in the past, that used to all get added in after the fact as visual effects.
With the green screens?
That's right, with green screens. But now we're using screens to actually put those environments around people, around the actors, so that they can have a more authentic performance within that space. So virtual production is creating a lot more technology jobs as well in screen production.
How is the industry coping with the insatiable demand for fresh, news stories both for film and series?
I think the industry is absolutely loving all the opportunity that's around because, as you say, we're in the middle of a huge content boom, a giant, screen content boom that's global actually, with so many new platforms emerging and streaming platforms. Every platform wants its own exclusive content, so it means that there's more opportunity than ever before to create your own film or TV series or video game for that matter, because that is also exploding around the world. It's driven by audiences too. Audiences are wanting to see more content, to engage with more content, to play more video games.
Is it easier to find investors for the films and series with this demand?
That's a great question, because you would imagine that with there being so many more platforms, it would seem like a much more attractive investment opportunity. So I think it depends on what kind of content you're making. It's true that there are more what we would call marketplace buyers. A company like Netflix or Amazon or Apple, they would be in the marketplace looking to buy new content. And there's new platforms popping up all the time. So Stan is a really fantastic buyer of content in Australia as well. There's more opportunities to get investment from companies like that than there ever has been before. I think as well, the other thing is there's also private investment that you can get for your projects, so equity investment. But with that, the investors need to look at what they're interested in. Is they're looking for a return on their money. So they're looking to make their money back and maybe make a profit as well, ideally, is what they want to do. So it would depend on what type of content you're making as to whether or not a private investor is going to be interested in putting their money into your project. It'd have to be something that would have the ability to sell into the market afterwards. So if you're doing a Netflix show and Netflix is going to own that show forever, then an investor isn't going to want to invest in that because they're not going to make their money back. But if you can have a project that you can then sell afterwards, then that's really attractive for an investor right now.
Can you tell us about some of the Australian films that really highlight the outback and some key features that you wouldn't otherwise get overseas?
Yeah, and I think this is a really good way for us to be able to compete globally against, all those big production companies coming from all over the world, is to tell our Australian stories. We have lots of unique aspects of our landscape, but also our culture of what makes us Australian, and that is fascinating to international audiences. We're hearing that all the time. So a film like Red Dog, which is set in Western Australia, it's a true story. It's a beautiful, heartwarming story of the loyalty of a dog to its owner. But it also showcases the beautiful Pilbara region of Western Australia. That is a story that's going to resonate with international audiences because of the heartfelt dog story at its core, yeah. But they also get to experience a bit of Australia, which they might never get to see in their lives. So it's a way to, it can transport you into a new environment. I think Top End Wedding is another example of that, a film that I was involved in, that I produced, which it gives people the chance to experience the Northern Territory, but also to do it through the eyes of an Aboriginal woman and the connection that she has with her culture and her country. And that film was selected into Sundance for that reason, because international audiences are really fascinated by our landscapes, but also our First Nations people culture and the huge history of 40,000 year history of storytelling that our First Nations people have. And I think that's another aspect of our screen storytelling that really can stand out in a global marketplace as well.
Kate, thank you very much for taking the time to share your insight and knowledge with us young people.
Thank you, Isabella. It's been wonderful to be part of this series and to have the chance to talk to you. And I actually have a question for you, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I'm interested to know, in your generation of young people, are there lots of people who are interested in being involved in the screen industry when they grow up?
Well, one of my friends, she says she wants to be a writer and director. I say it's really popular.
That's great. So we just got to make sure people know what are the job opportunities and training pathways that are available to them so that they feel like that they can, you know, head down that path. Because I think I didn't have that opportunity when I was young. So I'm glad to hear that. That's wonderful.
I have a gift for you.
Oh, thank you. Wow, thank you. I look like the queen of the castle there. Oh, that's terrific. What a great drawing. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That would have taken a long time to do. I can see the detail. It looks like you've got a very creative mind as well.
Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Would it be possible to take me on a tour of the grounds
Yes.
and of the South Australian Film Corporation?
Absolutely, we can do that.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this is the mixing theatre. This is Yvonne, who's our post-sound technician. This is Isabella.
Nice to meet you.
To you.